people always say, when we're rushing on set, or movie people, I've heard a lot say, we're not saving lives. And that's true. We're not, but you have to take it seriously. And you might be saving somebody's life. We also forget, because we're so in this world, what films mean to people and what films mean to children and people going through heartbreak or grief. You can't underestimate that. So it is important work. And you have to have a sense of humor. It's you have to have the combination. It's the two-sided coin thing, I guess. And that's kind of how life is. You have to take it very seriously, but then you have to be able to pull back and go, okay, it's also not that serious.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Riley Keough is an actor. She sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work. I've heard you say that you prepare for each role a little differently, but is there something that you need to work out first? Is there something like that you need to wrap your arms around with the character initially before you move on to other things?
It is always different. And, in the beginning of my career, it was kind of hard for me to know what to do, because sometimes when I would prepare a scene, it would take the magic out of it. And sometimes when I wouldn't be prepared enough, I would be drowning. So now, after having experience, I can kind of, I always prepare for the character in some way, whether that's, research, accent coaching, watching films, videos, depends on, depending on what it is, having to learn new skills, or, going through the script and going through the beats and all of those things. I always do that. But then on the day, depending on the scene, there's some scenes that I have to learn, front to back, and have to know sort of in my sleep. And there's some scenes that I look at them and go, this is one where I will do better. I know myself if I barely know it. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of just been spending, having more and more experience and knowing what, to kind of use for what scene. I like freedom a lot. I work better when I don't feel, when it's not a rigid scenario. With that said, there are scenes that I, as I mentioned, I have to really prepare. And it's just knowing myself, really, at the end of the day. There's things that work for some days that don't work on other days. And that's the part of it that's magical, I can use my, something successfully one day, and the next day it totally doesn't work, and you have to pivot. So I think that for me, one of the most important things is that I always stay open and don't get stuck on, don't get rigid, really. And you're also never, it's always so vastly different, the actors you're working with, the director you're working with. So, I don't know. It's kind of like a lot of it for me is I have to adjust on the fly and be willing to, I can go into something and have thoughts about it and have to be willing and take my ego out enough to totally, to take it apart and do whatever's necessary in that moment, and kind of, yeah. So trying to stay open. When I was younger, I would find myself getting frustrated a lot when, I'd be like, I would prepare something or have an idea of what a scene looked like, and get there. And of course the director wants to try it differently. And you're like, no, but I know my character, and this is what and the more experience I have, the more I try and just, totally work from a place of, just being open, just in the moment and present, which is really hard. It's meditation, that's hard to do at home. So it can definitely be challenging at work. But that's kind of my goal anyway, is to work from that kind of place.
It's so interesting to hear this idea of being fluid, but being prepared, and hitting that line. I don't understand how.
It's so weird, and it's something that you have to do in so many ways in film. Is you have to keep the fluidity and be prepared in the scene, and then you also have to do that, literally and physically,
right.
and try and keep, stay fluid when like with so many restraints,
Yeah.
So, step here and look this way and, whatever. And it is it's a funny thing.
It is. Do you think a lot of this was in you though, from forever?
I think that every performer is different.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one type of performer. I think for me, I definitely know that from a young age, I felt the urge to not perform, the urge to be other people or whether that manifested as playing games as a kid and running off into the forest and being like, oh, I'm running away from the castle and, whatever the thing was. I really wanted to do that thing. And as I got older, it sort of, turned into wanting to make home movies and also became a fascination with just human beings and nuances and I don't know, people really.
How much of you starting out as a filmmaker, as like behind the camera and in whatever way you were doing it, how much of that like played into some of this stuff that you needed as an actor, just knowing what your friends or whatever were doing in front of the camera and knowing what you needed, to get, and then becoming a working actor and having to give that on that side of the camera?
It is hard to switch off, the director part of your brain, when you're performing and going, okay, I want to be free and in the moment, but I also know that this scene kind of might, I know that in the edit that, this might be a good thing to give them. Right. So I'm doing that as well, going like, fuck, like, what choice do I make here? And I feel like both might be cool, but then I don't want to be in the middle. And, so I have that kind of part of my brain that's very, and I try and get rid of that when I'm performing. I have to, or else I'm not in the moment. And sometimes it does come up a lot. And I'm a perfectionist, and I have to sort of, I have to, like, anything I do, but specifically performing, I really have to try and totally empty out and stop my mind chatter and totally stop my Riley thoughts coming in and, try and, quiet everything and then be an actor, and not be thinking about like, oh my gosh, I don't know, whatever the director part of my brain is saying to me.
Is there something a director can do or that you can think a director did do that can help what you're talking about right here, to help to get you to turn off your director brain, to get in the moment, because you're almost making me think like that maybe that director side of the brain comes on if the director isn't a certain way and you feel like you need to be thinking that stuff. Is that true?
I mean, I definitely think the more I trust the director, the less my brain becomes obsessive. Mind becomes obsessive and wanting to make sure that we're going down the right path.
Yeah.
For sure, definitely. But it's also something I have to work on myself, because I do have that sort of perfectionist thing where I won't stop. I won't stop. If I could do things over and over for hours, I would just continue, so sometimes I need somebody to look at me and go like, we're good. We've got this. And I'll just, but I think it's more of a me problem, to be honest.
I've heard you say that you're not afraid to fail, but I also heard you say that like you hate auditioning and you're bad at auditioning. And I thought, how do those two things go together?
Well, because I have anxiety, and that's why I hate auditioning. And I've had it since I was a kid, and I get triggered in situations where I feel stuck. So, or like I can't get out of it. So, and auditions very much have that energy.
Right.
I also get it on airplanes or dinners I don't want to be at, or, you know, things like that. So I'm not a bad auditioner because I'm going in going, I'm so scared to fail. I'm a bad auditioner because I have like panic attacks. So I'll go in and I actually can't, I'll start getting, you know, I'll get really flushed and feel out of body, and I'm not actually, it's more like the environment is triggers my anxiety, really. But yeah, then I get out and I'm like, oh, that was rough. Oops, you know. That happens all the time.
So wait, if you're like this, we lost out on you being in and being right for so many things because of this. And that's not a you problem. That's really a them problem, because they should know by now how to create an environment that is anxiety proof for people. You know, because just in the event that one of you people that have this kind of reaction are coming into the room, and we want to get the best out of everyone and find out who's right.
Definitely. I mean, I know there's so many actors who are fantastic auditioners, and I'm surely not one of them. And I don't work well. And this is something else. It's something I need to work on in an environment where it's being judged. You know, if I'm in a space that I'm free to create my art and do what I want, you know, I feel very free and can perform. But I don't know. I'm just when it's an environment where it's, you know, come in and let me see kind of what you can do. I definitely don't do my best work. Right. I kind of just shut off. I'm like, I need to get out of here. I go into fight or flight, and I don't even, I think I just kind of say my lines and I'm like, can I go? Thank you.
The real interesting thing that I've found about what you had to do in Zola that I think is really deceptively hard is you had to make her be seductive enough to like seduce Zola. Like she had to be a person that Zola almost like falls in love with in a way in the beginning, but you couldn't sacrifice like her absurdity. You also you never dipped into caricature, and I don't understand how you did that. She's hilarious, and I know I'm seeing different roles that people have played that are similar that just exist totally in caricature. And it's not really funny. It's offensive. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, you landed on a tone that worked. Can you tell me how, like, what that process was of landing on that?
Well, I mean, from the beginning, that was a conversation that I had with Janicza specifically, of not wanting it to be a caricature, because on the page she was completely, you know, outrageous and crazy, and I know Janicza's work, and I know that you know, it's theatrical, and it rides this line, and I thought it was really important that, you know, and that was something I was stressed about. Honestly, I was stressed. I was worried about getting that right, and I don't know if it has to do with, you know, life experience and being around people like this, and it not being like an idea or a character in a movie that I've just read and that I'm looking up online, but having lived, you know, a life and met people similar to Stefani, and that might have to do with it, you know, that it wasn't something that was very far away for my brain to for my mind to wrap itself around. But also just being really conscious of it, of wanting her to feel authentic. And, you know, there was some leeway, because I think Stefani as a character is performative and manipulative. So it was, I always try and I really wanted to, for this, to have her feel authentic and that this is who she is, and not, you know, that she's putting on a show and that she's a cartoon character.
The part where she tells her story, which is so hilarious. Like I watched it, I kept rewinding and watching that part. What I really appreciated about your performance in that is that you didn't I don't even know how to describe it. You didn't play the joke. You didn't play the jokes. And you didn't wink at us or something. Is any of this making sense? And how did you approach that?
I mean, you know who also does that fantastically is Nicholas Braun.
Yes.
He is so amazing at that. Like, he never, even working with him, things that you're like, you know, this is ridiculous, right? You know, this is funny. He's taking it so seriously. He's not trying to be funny.
Right.
You know, and he's being this person who's really feeling this way. And the scene's funny and it's in the writing, but he's not, you know, playing the comedy. And that's what makes Nick so funny to watch and work with. And I mean, I think it's just, you know, it's, what's funny is that she's serious, you know, and believes herself. So it was just and it was also in the writing, you know, she's very seriously, you know, saying all these things and opinions she has, and
just the way she moves is funny. But if you overdo it, it pushes into something else, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's where you have to trust the director.
Yeah.
You know? And that's where I have to be, you know, Janicza is so incredible. And that's where you're relying on them, because you kind of do go to this place when you're performing. You're not totally, I anyways go to this place where I'm not totally like high functioning and able to see the whole picture, and you kind of lose perspective and you're kind of, you know, doing whatever, God's work. I'm just kidding. And so you need, like, that's where Janicza was there. Janicza was there to say more or less, or tone it down, or, you know, amp it up a little. And I guess that's the beauty of collaboration.
If you can build a director from all of the great directors that have worked for you, not just like in general, a great director, you know, because maybe some directors are great for everyone, and for you, it wasn't so great. But if you can build one and give me some elements of what you would include.
I was talking to my best friend about it today, actually. I end up doing the thing I need to do. And if you're giving me too much to think about, the magic's going to go away. And if it's, you know, on the first, when you say, you know, when you walk in, you're here, and then the next thing, I want this beat to be like that. Like, if it's too much information, my brain, you know, goes on override and I'm just kind of like a robot, and I'm just doing the things you're saying. And so, I think for me, I need freedom, and I need to be allowed to fuck up maybe a couple takes, and because I will come to it. I will, you know, when I feel somebody's kind of over controlling or sort of breathing down my neck, I don't perform well. With that said, I very much like direct communication. Like, I don't like this and try it like that, and I don't get offended. I'm extremely sensitive as a person, but I don't get offended. You know, I was working with Lars von Trier on a movie, and he came up to me and just said, you know, I didn't believe that. And I was like, sure, fair enough. I didn't either, you know, and great. And I love that, you know, because he was right. I was tired. It was a night shoot, and I was like, fuck, man, like, I'm not feeling this, you know? So in that moment, that's what I needed. And I think it's trust. And I don't personally ever, but it's also, you know, it is very vulnerable, and you do have to be gentle. It's so many things. I don't know. I think we're all different too, you know, just trust and telling me what you want. If I had to be really reductive, you know, the sort of like, let's, you know, beating around the bush thing people can do that I don't personally respond well to that.
That was the movie that I first was like wowed, really, really wowed by you, The House That Jack Built. And people don't talk about this movie. And, with for good reason, I guess, because I don't think I ever want to watch it again. But I appreciate it quite a bit. And I appreciate your performance in it. And I heard you say something that's really important, I think, which is that you don't want to risk your mental health to do this job.
Yes.
And I think through this podcast, maybe before the podcast, I would have disagreed with that maybe or something. Definitely now, though, not only do I agree with that, I think it's not necessary. Like you do not even need to do that to do the job well. I really, really believe that. But when I watch that scene, though, that you had to do in that movie, it's a sustained situation. I don't know how someone can not mess with their mental health during that. But I mean, how did you do that?
I'm conscious of not, abusing my mental health, but I definitely have, I at the same time, I want to do what I have to do, and I want to perform, and it is cathartic to perform. And so for me, it's like, if I do it and we get it, and then I have to do it 20 more times, and then I start going, this is done. This doesn't feel good. I don't need to continue to do this. That's where I'll protect myself, and it is hard. You do bring it home, I guess, as they say. And it is when you have to do heavy stuff. And I think you just need a method of, turning it on and trying to turn it off. And definitely some people, like living in it and have a more method approach, and that's fine. I very much care about my mental health, and that scene definitely fucked me up. And we were on night shoots, and I was really tired, and it's really dark, but you kind of get used to turning it on and turning it off.
How much of this whole endeavor is spiritual for you, and what does that mean to you?
I mean, the crazy thing about acting and spirituality is you're kind of, I was thinking this the other day, like you're manufacturing you're manufacturing your emotions in the moment, and you're feeling joy on command, and you're feeling whatever the thing is on command. But then I'm going, why can't I do that in my life? And that's where the crossover is interesting to me. I'm at work, and I have to, do a scene where I walk in and I'm super excited and happy and in love and feeling great, and I can do that. But why can't I do that when I'm in my house feeling frustrated or angry? And that is something that's so fascinating to me. And I'm very spiritual, and I don't know what that even means, but I read a lot and I meditate a lot, and the ability to cultivate emotions at work and not at home is really interesting, and something I'm kind of, I guess, exploring at the moment. But it's also, I mean, I don't want to freak out your audience, but it's also the ability to I don't know. I don't need to go down this path.
I'd really like you to, for myself.
I feel like a spirit, and I don't always feel like a person, and that can be beneficial, to not feeling rigid in my acting, because I don't feel, I feel pretty, I feel like I could be anything. And I don't identify really strongly as, I don't know, a person with a life, with a thing and whatever in this simulation kind of thing, so I'm very open. And I think that helps me personally. I don't know. I think everything's spiritual. I think that that getting up and making a cup of coffee is spiritual, and walking your dog is spiritual, and being present. So definitely acting and kind of everything.
And you seem to really like people.
I do. I always say, like, if people knew how much I love them, I think they'd be weirded out. Often, just random people or people at work or at the grocery store or wherever. I think that if they could read my mind, they would be like, whoa, this is intense. I do have so much love in my heart for people, and I love them.
That's got to help in this job, don't you think?
Well, yes, because like empathy is a huge part of filmmaking, and humanizing people, and it definitely, I have been thus far in my career more interested in playing people who are not, in a easy to figure out or easy to kind of cast a judgment on, or 1 second you're going, wait, I hate this person, but actually I love this person. And that's definitely a realm that I find myself in a lot, that I'm interested in. I think that's just humanizing people that would probably get judgment more than not.
When I started this podcast, and then for about 2 years, I was really, I had much reverence for the work, and I had so much appreciation for what you people do, and I thought that this was such an amazing thing to do with your life, like as an artist, this job, acting. Over the last couple months, I hit something where I was like, I really started to feel sorry for actors with all the other stuff that they have to deal with. And it became an overwhelming feeling, like all of the bullshit, all of this. We were just talking about auditions, like that's part of this, but it's more than that. You're always treated in this way in the business, which is like, in this weird way, it feels like, by the industry. And even if you're doing well, you were talking about how you're sensitive. Like, most of the people that do this work really well are sensitive people. I'm starting to feel bad for people. And I guess my question is, you were just saying you're a sensitive person. How do you deal with all this? How do you want to keep going on in this? It's not fair that you have to love this so much that you can survive all of that. It doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're definitely touching on something that people don't ever talk about, which is actors aren't really allowed to go, I'm struggling, I'm having a hard time, this is really hard, or whatever the thing is, because we're so lucky to be in film, because or whatever, somebody decided that that's a great thing, or I don't know, because that's the idea of that celebrity and whatever in this world, or but the truth is that it definitely is challenging, and there are challenging things about it, but that's everything in life, and I do think that there is something to be said about being able to do something for work that you are so obsessed with. Like, that is, how could you not be grateful for that? To be allowed to do the thing that is like your purpose, so it is worth it. And I will say that it's not easy. And if you've got actors and filmmakers and writers and who are, out there being successful and doing things, they've likely, they're likely very tough. And it's not, it isn't really for the faint of heart. And it is a lot of rejection. And It is hard when you're sensitive. I'm very sensitive. But I don't know. I think there's hopefully more, I think if you're having more positive experiences than negative, then you should continue. And if you're having more negative experiences than positive, you should not continue. And I've definitely had more positive experiences than I have negative. And yeah, it's funny. Like, people always say, when we're rushing on set, or movie people, I've heard a lot say, we're not saving lives. And that's true. We're not, but you have to take it seriously. And you might be saving somebody's life. We also forget, because we're so in this world, what films mean to people and what films mean to children and people going through heartbreak or grief. You can't underestimate that. So it is important work. And you have to have a sense of humor. You have to have the combination. It's the two-sided coin thing, I guess. And that's kind of how life is. You have to take it very seriously, but then you have to be able to pull back and go, okay, it's also not that serious.
Riley Keough, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.